What's up, guys? Beyond, I am back with another video, and it's been a while since I've done one of these prediction videos for a WWE event. SummerSlam's tomorrow, and I want to make this video less of a prediction video and more of a kind of a fantasy booking kind of deal, because to put it to you in the simplest of terms, SummerSlam this year could be the biggest SummerSlam of all time. Not necessarily for what's going to happen in terms of the matches and match outcome, whatever. Though I would say probably every single match on this card will be some level of good to great to fucking awesome. But more so for the fallout of SummerSlam and how it's going to shape WWE for the rest of this year and for the future. So, walk with me as we take a look at SummerSlam 2024 and what I think, again, could be the biggest SummerSlam of all time in terms of the fallout, the repercussions, and the amount of change that could end up happening if WWE takes these routes. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future videos and streams. And let's go ahead, let's get into it. So first things first, the US title match. LA Knight beats the shit out of Logan Paul, beats him for the title, and then proceeds to send his ass to the fucking Shadow Realm. Need I say more? Yes? Okay. It's... Look, this isn't even just about Logan Paul being a flaming douchebag and the latest bit of controversy he decided to get himself into. Because, yes, there has been another Logan Paul thing. However, it's not even just because of that. It's largely because Logan Paul needs to fucking win a title. Whether or not you want to count the $1 million title when he was feuding with Cameron Grimes in NXT, that's up to you. It was a thing that happened, and don't get me wrong, that feud was fucking hilarious. But still, he hasn't won a proper singles title or any title of any sort in NXT or on the main roster in his WWE career. And it is a blessing that he is still in WWE to begin with, considering the fact that he has said himself that he's been close to getting fired multiple times, especially during his Max Dupree run. But for as over as he is, you gotta put the belt on him at some point. And now is honestly the best time to do it because, again, there's been another Logan Paul thing, and it's time for Logan Paul to go fuck off and get the fuck away from WWE. Please. And speaking of people that need to fuck off, no, Ronda Rousey does not need to come back. Don't you even dare have those fucking conversations, please and thank you. That being said, again, LA Knight wins. And once he does, it's going to be interesting to see how that title reign looks, who he goes against. Um, and I think it should be a good reign. It's probably like the one match on this card that, in terms of like the future, it's less about the future and more about the here and now. Again, LA Knight needs to win precisely because he needs to beat Logan Paul, but also because he should win the title. So, anyway, moving on. Sami Zayn versus Bron Breakker for the IC title. Now, without context, Sami beating Braun at Money in the Bank kind of seemed weird. I was surprised when I saw that outcome pop up on my phone, and the thing about it is I figured Braun was going to win. I figured Braun was going to beat the shit out of him. But with context, you find that Braun didn't take him seriously going into that match, and he paid the price. And he's not going to make the same mistake twice. Now, there is a report or rumor or whatever out there that WWE wants to crown Braun at a bigger event, even though Money in the Bank is one of the biggest events WWE has outside of like the big four, per se. And some would argue Money in the Bank is bigger than Survivor Series, though with Survivor Series now being Survivor Series War Games, it has sort of regained some of that prestige. But anyway, in that case, why not just make it a triple threat at Money in the Bank or have Bron get himself DQ'd, whatever, but I digress. He's going into this match with a different mindset. He's not going to take Sami lightly, which you shouldn't be taking Sami Zayn lightly anyway, because he's a fucking beast. And, there's a reason why he's so fucking good, and yet often is looked at as the underdog, but he manages to win. Um, and this will be Braun's crowning moment. He wins the IC title, but even in a loss, I think Sami Zayn still kind of picks up a W here. We'll get to that later. But Braun gets the job done. He wins the IC title, and now the question is for him moving forward, do you have him do you pick up again with him and Ilya Dragunov? Or, depending on the outcome of another match on this card, could Ilya be moved up the card and then Braun gets other people to go against? Do you bring the Chad Gable-Otis feud back into the IC title picture, even as Chad Gable and the Creeds, and presumably soon Ivy Nile as well, are getting murked by the Wyatt Six? Speaking of which, I am honestly glad they're not on this card. Not because they shouldn't be, because ideally, seeing Howdy versus Gable or Gacy, Rowan, and Loomis against the Creeds and Gable, it would be fun. But honestly, having that match on Raw after SummerSlam rather than at SummerSlam honestly makes more sense just because of how big this SummerSlam is. Again, all but one of these matches is a title match. And on top of that, there's one massive ass fucking return that everyone's looking forward to potentially happen, and another one that's could happen. We'll get to that as well. Actually, two that could happen, but one I think might be more likely than the other, at least for tomorrow. Um, and so you don't want any of that overshadowing the first in-ring match of members of the Wyatt Six. So I'd rather have that on Raw, and you continue to build that up moving forward. Now, one of those other two returns that I think could happen, a lot of people want to see Alexa Bliss come back. And a lot of people are thinking that because with SummerSlam being in Cleveland and her being from Columbus, that maybe she might return. I don't think so. And again, it's for the same reason why I'm glad the Wyatt Six are not on this card. It's because I don't want Alexa's return to get overshadowed by other potential returns later on down the line. So we'll save that. Anyway, moving forward, we get to the one non-title match on this card, Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk with Seth Rollins as a special guest ref. Now, for a feud as hot as this one is, you would think I'd probably discuss this a little later in the video, but I'm discussing it now because out of everything, this match has the most clear outcome leading into the future. And that is sort of a reenactment, kind of the finish to Bret Hart versus The Undertaker when Shawn Michaels was a special guest ref, in which Michaels gets pissed off just enough, and Hart, because it's him and Bret Hart, and he tries to take a swing at Bret. Undertaker gets hit. Shawn is forced to make the count, which he doesn't want to because it's his rival, that being Bret. And then, shenanigans ensue. I think the same happens here, where Punk pisses off Seth just enough to get Seth to swing, but Seth ends up hitting Drew and is forced to make the count for Punk when he doesn't want to. Punk gets the win, Drew gets screwed again, and then at Bash in Berlin later this month, we get a triple threat between the trio, in which, at the end, I feel Punk will steal the pin from Drew, pin Seth, and sort of put a little bow on the Punk-Seth rivalry for now. That will come back up at a later time. And Drew, getting screwed over for the umpteenth fucking time this year because of CM Punk, finally says, enough's enough. Or rather, Adam Pearce ends up saying enough's enough because you know damn well these two are going to be brawling each other on Raw. He makes the match for Bad Blood at the beginning of October, Hell in a Cell, Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk. This feud has to end. And I have said this for a while now, to be quite honest with you. This could honestly be, because they're bringing back Bad Blood and reportedly want to have a Hell in a Cell match on the card because it's the anniversary of Taker versus Mankind. And honestly, Punk versus McIntyre in Hell in a Cell could be one of the most brutal matches that WWE has seen in a long time. I'm saying let them do whatever the fuck they want to each other. Let them beat the hell out of each other. Let them bleed fucking buckets. Just old school, basically the way that Hell in a Cell should be. You beat the piss out of each other until one of you can't fucking fight anymore. And that's how it should be. And Drew finally overcomes Punk, gets the win, puts Punk behind him, and he can finally move on. And I have to say, by the end of that match, which, by the way, should be in the main event of Bad Blood, by the way, by the end of that match, this will have been one of the greatest feuds WWE's ever done. And it pretty much started on accident. Think about it. Drew accidentally injures Punk in the Royal Rumble. They turn that into storyline. You get to WrestleMania. Punk screws Drew after Drew beats Seth, allowing Damian to cash in. And Drew inadvertently gets injured himself again on accident. But you play it off like it. But then in the storyline, you play it off like it meant to happen because these two fucking hate each other. And even though the two of them have been injured and Punk isn't around all the time because his injury is more severe and took longer to heal, they've been able to build this feud up so fucking much to where no matter what, there's nothing that's going to take away from it because everyone wants to see Drew hand Punk his fucking ass. And so you kind of just build upon that more and you stall it until Bad Blood because that's where this should end. If you're going to do the anniversary of Taker Mankind, you have to do it right. And this should be how you do it. Because it's literally the only feud that WWE has going right now that deserves to end inside Hell in a Cell. And again, let them bleed fucking buckets, man. Honestly, I wouldn't even have the ref inside of Hell in a Cell. Keep the ref on the outside and have him watch. Because the moment they get in the ring together, they're just going to beat the piss out of each other. It's going to be fucking brutal, man. And once they start bleeding, don't stop the match because again, it's fucking Hell in a Cell. I understand why they did it for Balor when he faced Edge at WrestleMania last year. I understand why they did that. Because it was the way, the ladder hit him, the fact that he ended up having to have stitches afterward and all that shit. But honestly, for this match, don't even worry about it. Just let them beat the fucking piss out of each other. And let Drew get the win. Let him move on. Punk can move on. And, it's crazy. I think at the end of the year, the two greatest feuds that we will have seen in wrestling this year are are blood feuds that you just don't fucking see anymore all that much. Drew and Punk and Effie and Mance Warner from GCW earlier this year. I'm just going to throw that out there. The two of the greatest feuds, probably the two greatest feuds this year. Two of the greatest feuds. Two of the greatest feuds we've seen in a long fucking time. Just fucking insanity. So, moving on from that, we now get to Bayley versus Nia Jax for Bayley's women's title. Now, before we talk about this match, let's take a step back and look at SmackDown tonight. I should have mentioned this earlier in the video, but this is being recorded and uploaded before SmackDown, so I don't know what the fuck's going to happen tonight. But what we do know is Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are trying to get the women's tag titles back, and they're facing the champions Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Now, here's what I think could and honestly should happen. A friend of mine on Twitter, who's a Bianca fan, mentioned earlier this week the possibility that Blair Davenport could cost Bianca and Jade the match. Why? Well, they're friends with Naomi. Blair's got beef with Naomi, so it makes sense. And what this does, I think, and what I think should happen, is it's a catalyst for Bianca and Jade to turn heel. It feels like as of late they've been a little bit more aggressive. Um, you know, the whole, not waiting for the opportunity, we're going to take it for ourselves anyway, that sort of thing. But it goes a little more than that. For the longest while, it's felt like Bianca has come close to maybe possibly turning heel, and then it just doesn't happen. And I think now might be the time to do it. Like, when they won the tag titles, a lot of us thought they were going to go on this insanely long run, beat the shit out of everybody, and it would take probably dissension between the two of them for them to lose the titles. So losing in the triple threat, and granted, Bianca and Jade didn't get pinned. Don't get me wrong, but losing in the triple threat, with which also involves Shane and Zoe, um, it was interesting. It was a feel good win for Alba and Isla, especially because it was in their home country. Alba had just lost her mother, but then afterward, you see fans talking about how, okay, but what's the plan moving forward? And now that we've gotten to this point, people are wondering if there wasn't a plan. Triple H said that you know the win wasn't because Alba's mother had passed away or they were in their home country. Da da da. A lot of fans seem to be speculating otherwise. But the way I see it is, I mean, first of all, the women's tag division, it still doesn't have enough depth. And you're not having the women's tag teams crossing over from brand to brand unless it's the champions, for the most part. And if you're in a feud with said champions. So there's that. But also, I just want to see Bianca turn heel, bro. Like, Bianca as a face is incredible, but I think some would say that, and people have honestly been saying this for a while now, that Bianca's face run, for as good as she is, it's time for a change. And that's not to say that Bianca can't evolve or anything. Like, look, John Cena, he's been a face for pretty much his entire career, and he's been able to do things to sort of differentiate himself and evolve in certain ways. And Bianca can do the same thing. But we've seen Bianca as a heel, more so as a tweener, but as a heel of sorts in NXT. We've seen that. We've seen Jade Cargill as a heel in AEW. And quite frankly, I want to see how WWE would book her as a heel. And I think it just makes sense. Blair cost them the match. They go ape shit, attack the champs, attack Blair, and make it clear shit needs to change. And then they run into Naomi backstage. And Bianca tells Naomi things need to change. And they leave it at that. Now, I said all of that because regarding this match because, to refresh your memory, before Naomi and Blair's feud started, Naomi was hanging around Bayley. And if you pay close attention, you look at the way Naomi was looking at Bayley's title, the way she was sort of reacting to some of the things Bayley was saying. It seems like there was something there. Maybe Naomi is going to turn heel at some point. And then they kind of took that away with the Naomi Blair feud. And that's actually smart because you give the little teases, then you take it away, and then you give it back by way of Naomi screwing Bayley over. So what happens? Well, what I think happens, Nia has Tiffany, who's Miss Money in the Bank, right? And by the way, no, I don't want Tiffany to cash in at SummerSlam because we saw Io cash in last year and it worked out, obviously, but I want to see that get built up more. We're waiting to see what kind of custom briefcase Tiffany will have because she said she was going to do that. And with the custom briefcase, usually the person that's holding it ends up holding it for a while. So I want to see Tiffany hold it for a while. And during this match, obviously she's going to try and help Nia. So the ref ends up catching her. Crucially, Tiffany has to be standing at ringside on the side coming from the entrance ramp because it's going to make what's going to happen next work the best it possibly could. So Tiffany's over there, gets caught, ref throws her out. Tiffany's arguing with her, or with the ref, on the apron, and Bayley's watching. Naomi comes out, attacks Bayley from behind, costing Bayley the match and her title. Ref doesn't see it. Nia pins and wins the title. And then you build things up between Nia and Tiffany moving forward, leading to Tiffany's eventual cash-in. Now, the way this would then be explained is when you look at Naomi's first run in WWE, going from the Funkadactyls to being a two-time SmackDown Women's Champion with one reign being cut short due to injury, and the other, no offense, but honestly, I don't remember anything from it. I don't even remember who the fuck she lost it to. Put it to you that way. And then doesn't win another title, I don't believe, until she won the tag titles with Sasha at WrestleMania a couple years ago, and we know what happened there. Naomi can talk about how in that first run, she gets the title, gets injured, drops the title, gets it back, loses it, and then never really gets another shot at it. Wins the tag titles, shit happens. She leaves to kind of find herself, comes back, she gets in these big, some of these big matches, Royal Rumble, where she returned, Elimination Chamber, and things like that, but she keeps getting passed over. She feels disrespected. Meanwhile, with Bayley, she's been at or near the top for pretty much the majority of her main roster run, and even going as far back as NXT. She's had injury. She's been injured before as well. Both of them, coincidentally, both of them have had leg injuries. But whereas Naomi loses the title, gets injured, loses the title, gets it back later, but doesn't really get to do a ton with it. Bayley gets injured, comes back. She gets her own faction. She's in the title picture constantly. Multiple title matches. Yeah, Bayley didn't win, which I didn't agree with at the time. Still don't. I think her and Bianca could have swapped the title back and forth, and it could have worked. All this stuff, and then eventually does win the title, sort of as a culmination of all that. And Naomi never really got that. She's tired of the disrespect, and she felt that with Bianca and Jade. They're tired of being disrespected. And this is a thing that I've seen, is that people talking about how, oh, Jade's holding Bianca back. Oh, Bianca needs to go back to being a single star. First of all, Bianca's been busting her ass all throughout her main roster run. Pretty much since excluding, 2020 aside, from about, say, Royal Rumble in 2021 onwards, she's been busting her ass. Has rarely missed time. She's been champion multiple times over. And, honestly, I don't mind her not being champion right now, because it kind of allows her to take a step back, kind of, slow down a little bit, not have as much pressure on her, which makes things obviously way more hectic than they already are. And it allows her to more or less, again, just like take a step back and sort of relax a little. She's still on TV, she's still doing stuff. It's not like she's sitting at home doing nothing. And so that's why I don't really agree with people when they say that her booking's gotten bad. I've been seeing people talking lately about how when Vince was running creative, like he almost treated Rhea like a mid Carter, kind of, and Bianca as sort of like the top star trophy, whatever, and now it's flipped. I don't really see it that way. I just see it as, for right now, you know, Bianca's doesn't have as big of a role, but it's allowing her to kind of, take a step back and not have as much pressure on her to then lead to this heel run, which is going to culminate in a lot of great things and eventually will culminate in her and Jade feuding, where honestly, Bianca stays the heel in that feud. I want to throw that out there as well. But all of that aside, you get Bianca, Jade, and Naomi together. Naomi feuds with Bayley, and you might say, well, why would she screw Bayley out of the title if she wants title? Well, that's the thing. Naomi should want to beat Bayley first to prove a point and then go get the title. And also, you then build things up even further between Nia and Tiffany because now you have Nia as the champion, Tiffany has the briefcase, and oftentimes when you have that sort of situation, the understudy wants to be at the top, and they're gonna, and eventually the champion is gonna do just enough to piss them off, turn their back on them, and then they get turned on by the Money in the Bank holder. Also, this is another return that I'm seeing potentially teased, and this is one that I honestly think is more plausible to happen at SummerSlam. Charlotte Flair. And at first I was thinking to myself, I don't know if, because I think she was on SmackDown before she got injured. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I'd have her go back, um, just because of how everything's going. But then I thought about it a little more. Nia won Queen of the Ring. Charlotte calls herself Queen. You can make a feud out of that. And then eventually you have a match and use that match to then allow Tiffany to cash in, which technically means that if that happens, Charlotte will have either been cashed in on or been in a match where somebody cashed in 5 different times. Carmella, Bayley, and Nikki all cashed in on Charlotte, where Charlotte got pinned. And last year, it was Charlotte versus Asuka versus Bianca. Charlotte didn't win the title in that match, so she wasn't the one to get pinned when Io cashed in. That was Bianca. But still, she was in that match, and in this case, it would be Nia and Charlotte. Nia would probably win, but Charlotte does enough to then allow Tiffany to cash in and for it to most likely be successful, keeping that 100% success rate going, which is nice. So you get, in doing all of this, you get multiple feuds and a lot of great TV, in my opinion, moving forward. Something else that's going to be great TV is the implosion of the Judgment Day, and that leads us to our next 2 matches, Rhea versus Liv and Gunther versus Damian. The key cog in both, Finn Balor. Because if you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed it by now. Maybe you haven't. I think, honestly, Liv's been playing Dom for a fool. Yeah, Dominic finally turned against Liv, went back to Rhea, but that doesn't matter. Liv did just enough to make that happen. She did just enough for Dom to have to stand up for himself, though at her detriment. But in reality, she wasn't in cahoots with him. She was in cahoots with Finn Balor. And there's been subtle little things that have been going on pretty much ever since Liv won the title. And just these little things. And then you look at Raw this past week. You look at how Rhea and Damian were talking to Finn. Because Finn faced Gunther in the main event, and how the way Finn sort of reacted and all this other stuff. Finn and Damian have been at each other's throats off and on for like forever now. And we've been wondering when the hell this was going to come to a head, and it's finally going to. Now, the question is, which match do you have go before the other? And how do you frame everything? In my view, I think you have Dominic get taken out before Rhea and Liv's match, and Rhea and Liv go on early. You have, and what happens is, if everyone thinks Liv took Dom out, it's Finn, not Dom. It would be Finn, not Liv. And so Rhea goes out alone, but during the match, Finn and JD come out. JD distracts the ref. Finn grabs a chair, a la Dominic, and has it set up to where, say, Rhea would throw Liv into the chair in the corner, right? Except Liv reverses it. Rhea hits the chair. Chair gets thrown out of the ring. Finn acts all surprised and all this other stuff. And Liv beats Rhea. So then afterward, it's framed as an accident. But then, during Gunther and Damian's match, shenanigans ensue. And this is where it's not an accident, it's on purpose. Finn hits Damian with the chair while the ref isn't looking. And Gunther wins. And you make it official, the whole turn official, where now it's Liv and Finn, and I would guess still JD, because Finn and JD are the tag champs. And I think you go to Bash in Berlin, you end up having Rhea, Damian, and Dominic against Finn, JD, and Liv. I think that would work. Carlito, I don't know what you do with him at this point. He's kind of the odd one out. But you build that up, and I guess in the alternate reality where Rhea wins and nothing happens, in the case of this match, the hilarious outcome would be Liv loses, but also wins, because then Rhea ditches Dominic anyway, even though Dominic ditched Liv, which would be fucking hilarious. So yeah, I think the proper outcome is Liv wins off of accidental interference from Finn, um, whatever. But then Damian loses to Gunther and loses his title because Finn interfered on purpose, turning his back on the Judgment Day. Judgment Day implodes, and you move on from there. So again, you then do the 3-on-3 at Bash in Berlin. Liv, Finn, and JD win, and then everyone kind of sort of moves on. You could say that for the women's War Games match, you could end up doing like Liv has a team and Rhea has a team, but I kind of think at some point people are going to want to kind of move off of Liv and Rhea, more so for the Dominic aspect than anything else. But yeah, I think that's where things go from here. And this is also what I was referring to earlier. Do you have Ilya go after Bron for the IC title, or with Gunther as champion, do you then run Gunther versus Dragunov at Bash in Berlin, and see what happens there? Now, with all of that being said, we get to what has been confirmed to be the main event: Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa for the Undisputed Heavyweight title. I know people don't want this to be the main event because it's Cody versus Solo, and a lot of people don't like Solo, and people think this match might suck. I think this match is going to be solidly decent, if not okay, if not maybe good. Who knows? But it's not about the match. It's about what's going to happen at the end of the match. More specifically, the ref goes down, because in Bloodline matches, the ref always seems to go down. And then shenanigans. So, I'm going to lay it out like this. Ref goes down. Cody gets ganged up on. Now, I don't know if they're going to have KO and Randy come back. KO being Kevin Owens. I don't know if they'll have them come back at SummerSlam to try and help Cody here, because both of them have been taken out. But either they do or they don't. Whatever happens, happens. But Jimmy, Uso, who I think returns on SmackDown tonight and costs Jacob and Tama the tag titles, or the tag title match against DIY. Jimmy comes out to try to help Cody, um, gets jumped. Jay comes out to try to help Cody, gets jumped. And I think you set it up where Jacob has Cody on his shoulders to do the Samoan drop, and Solo's in a position to give the Samoan spike, so it's a double, so it's a combo move of sorts. And then out comes Paul Heyman, and he says, "My name is Paul Heyman, and I am the special counsel to the real, original tribal chief, Roman Reigns." Out comes Roman, takes out Tama, takes out Tonga, and crucially, it's at this point where this takes one of two paths. One, Solo, well, either way, Solo has Jacob in position to attack Roman. One of two things happens here. One, Jacob turns on Solo, or two, Jacob attacks Roman, Roman takes him out. Now, Jacob turning on Solo, there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in a moment. But in the event Jacob attacks Roman and Roman takes him out, you get Roman and Solo stare down. Roman, he looks at Cody, he looks at Solo, he looks at Cody again, and then he proceeds to spear Solo. Spears him again for good measure, drags Cody over, Cody wins. Now, Cody does not need to beat Solo with Roman's help. Cody can beat Solo on his own. That's not the point of the match. That's not the point of the outcome here. The point is Roman has come back to retake the throne and to show Solo Sikoa who the real tribal chief is. And it ain't him. So afterward, Solo sort of goes and sits off in the corner, or on the outside. Roman grabs the title, brings it into the ring, he gives it to Cody, and he tells Cody something. And Cody will probably reveal it later, either in the press conference or on SmackDown, or maybe Roman reveals it. But either way, what Roman says to him is, "I want my rematch after I deal with Solo." And Cody probably will just look at him and just smile and say, "I wouldn't have it any other way." So what then happens here is, well, let's go back to the other option. If Jacob were to turn on Solo, same thing happens. Jacob takes Solo out. Roman finishes him off. Cody wins. Roman gives Cody the title. They have their moment. Either way, Solo attacks Roman from behind. Cody gets knocked out of the ring. Roman is able to overpower Solo, but the differentiation in the two outcomes, or the two potential outcomes, is what happens next. If Jacob were to turn, then Roman takes out Solo, and you get Roman, Jimmy, Jacob, and Heyman standing over Solo in the ring. Not Jay, though, and I'll explain why in a moment, as this video is almost 40 minutes long. If Jacob does not turn, then it's a situation where Roman is attacking Solo. Out comes The Rock. The Rock comes down. He looks at Roman. They go for the handshake, hug, whatever. Rock hits The Rock bottom on Roman. Then hits the people's elbow. Solo hits the Samoan spike. So the reason for the two different outcomes, and it largely plays into War Games, where we're all figuring the men's match is going to be OG Bloodline versus New Bloodline. And that is, do you have The Rock in the War Games match? Because, and also, the Jacob turning thing is largely because when he first popped up, a lot of us thought there's no way he's staying loyal to Solo for long. Jacob doesn't look like someone who would take orders from a pretender, and that's what Solo is. So, but the reason for this is do you have The Rock inside of War Games? Because we all figure Solo's working with The Rock to take down Roman. But if you had him in the War Games match, the way I look at it, it would be Roman, Jimmy, Jay, Sammy, and Jacob against Rock, Solo, Tama, Tonga, and Hikuleo, who was rumored to have signed. Now, Sammy and Jay. Here's the thing. Jay should not be accepting of Roman right off the bat because of all the shit Roman put him through. Jimmy has always been willing to fall in line. Jay, not so much. Remember, it took Roman whooping his ass twice and almost choking Jimmy the fuck out for Jay to fall in line in the first place. But you have to build this up where Jay eventually comes to trusting Roman again. And Sammy is the link. Because what I think happens is Sammy loses the IC title, but then him and Jay start tagging together, and eventually they win the tag titles from Finn and JD. Probably with some help from Rhea and Damian costing them. Now, if Jacob doesn't turn, i.e., The Rock is not put into the War Games match, you get Roman, Jimmy, Jay, Sammy, and Cody, because Cody would be on Team Roman, because even though there's tension between the two of them, again, Cody beat Roman and all that, Roman made the save for Cody at SummerSlam. So essentially, it would be Cody repaying the favor. And they'd be facing Jacob, Solo, Tama, Tonga, and Hikuleo. Or you go 4-on-4, Roman, Jimmy, Jay, and Sammy against Solo, Tama, Tonga, and Jacob. Either way, this has multiple different outcomes and paths for with which it could go, and I'm very much excited to see what happens. I'm excited for everything tomorrow night, and I'm looking forward to it. This I think has the potential to be the biggest SummerSlam of all time, largely off of the fallout and everything that could end up reshaping WWE for the rest of the year into 2025. So, with that being said, thank y'all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'll catch y'all next time, and I will be live reacting to SummerSlam tomorrow. Peace.